Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the IIA's CI Prepare to Pass webinar. My name is Kelly Quinn, and I'm the Vice President of the IIA Strategic Partnerships at the IIA, and I am going to be your host for today's broadcast, so welcome. A couple housekeeping notes. If you experience any technical issues at any point today, please use the F5 key on your PC keyboard or the refresh keys on your Mac to refresh your console, and that will typically resolve most issues. It's also recommended that you close out of any other programs on your computer, such as your email, just to ensure that you have the maximum bandwidth to view the program today. If you continue to experiencing any challenges, please send us a message using the help widget on your console for technical assistance, and we will work with you in the background to help out. We also will be taking some questions at the conclusion of the presentation if time permits. So please feel free to submit your questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget on your screen. And we will try to get to as many of those as we can. So with that being said, I am going to introduce our presenters for today. First, we have Vicki Mcintyre, who is our CI instructor, and she will be covering some exam tips. And then also Jonathan Jones from the IA certification team. He will be sharing some helpful information about the CI exam program. So Jonathan's going to start out by covering the CI program in general and an overview of the exam and everything you need to know about registration and some upcoming changes that he'll share. And then Vicki is going to jump in and help cover some information about exam preparation using the IICI learning system. She'll also share some study tips and test-taking tips. And then at the end, we will share some links and resources, and we will announce a winner. There's going to be a winner on the call today that will receive a free IA online CIE seminar. So we'll do a drawing for that. And you do need to be present on the call to win. And then we'll wrap up with any questions if time permits. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jonathan to cover the CI exam information.
Thank you, Kelly, and welcome to everybody who's joining us. I'm really happy to be here. This is one of the webinars I really enjoy. It's everybody who's a prospective CIA, and hopefully you guys get to learn something today, and we're excited to be along with you on your certification journey. So the first thing that we wanted to establish was just an idea about the reach and the scope of not only the CIA, but also the IIA. You know, many of you may already know about the IIA and may know about our presence, but as you look at the map, you can see we're represented pretty much around the globe. We are continuing to grow. We're at 165,000 certified, and that number continues to increase with really strong numbers. So one thing that we like to look at is obviously, you know, you have the map, but I'm sure if people on this call were just to kind of shout out, you know, where you're from, you would see that there is quite a mixture of us from various parts of the world. I mean, for instance, if you're looking here, you'll see North America, as well as Asia, has a huge population of CIAs, but also Africa, it's growing. Central South America is growing. Europe. So we're excited for you guys to prospectively join this group, but also understand that there is a very large network that you gain access to. So that's one of the benefits of being not only a CIA, but a part of the IIA as an organization. So on this next slide, it gives you some visual representation to the types of benefits that you would earn when you get the CIA. And these are surveys that are based on individuals who are in places of leadership, again, around the globe, and also individuals who are in charge of hiring. So, you know, these are the folks you're going to be interviewing with. You know, these are the audit managers. These are the CAEs. You know, these are the HR representatives who were being polled, and this was their thoughts when it came to internal audit. 84%, which is a pretty outstanding amount, they say that they believe that it adds value. 70% of CAEs who were included in this group, they prefer to hire CIAs. A lot of that has to do with the standards and what you have to know in order to earn the CIA certification. So that was very consistent amongst that leadership group. And then we have the financial amount, which, I mean, yeah, 38,000 more for CIAs. That was as of 2017, but that amount definitely has changed for the better. We would say there's more of a demand, especially when you look at the space that the world is starting to progress, whether or not it's technology, currency, new opportunities. As far as business, there needs to be controls, there needs to be audit, there needs to be QA. So all of those qualities and those skills that you earn as you progress through the CIA program, they definitely pay dividends, not only monetarily, but in your career goals as well.
All right, it looks like we have a polling question. So the polling question states, when are you planning to take a CIA exam part? So your options are within the next 6 months, within the next 12 months, or you haven't decided yet. So please go ahead and select the radio button next to response that best represents your answer, and just make sure to hit the submit button. So we'll give a few minutes for everybody, or a few seconds, excuse me, for everybody to select your choice, and then we'll turn it back over to Jonathan. All right, I think we can display the results. It's just coming up, 1 second.
Yeah, it looks like we still have a couple of individuals still answering. They're not sure. Hopefully they'll be a little more sure at the end of this presentation, right?
Exactly. There we go.
Awesome.
All right. It looks like within the next 6 months is the majority. So Jonathan, I'll turn it back over to you.
And that is exciting. Wow, so we have 14% who are not decided yet. All right, so hopefully we'll have some information for you guys to help you make the decision. And then I see within the next 12 months, we have about 17%. So most of you guys looks like you are ready to rock and roll. So we love to see that enthusiasm. So with that being said, let's take a look at the certification process. We tried to make it as simple as possible. As far as application, you would log into what's referred to as your CCMS record, which is the Certification Candidate Management System. You'll see that acronym used quite a bit. Once you log in, there's a easy button that you just click and it says apply to the CIA program. Once you click the application, you would go through the process and then it'll ask you for your supporting documentation. So it's pretty standard. It is a copy of government issued photo ID because of course you will be testing, right? So you can go to any one of the Pearson VUE test centers around the world, the physical test center. And in some areas, we allow online testing. So you're able to utilize a remote proctor and test from the comfort of your home or office, as long as you meet the requirements for the equipment. All of the documentation that is needed has to be submitted within 90 days. So it is, again, your photo ID, a copy of your education, proof of education. There are various pathways that we have. If you have a standard bachelor's or a master's degree, then you're able to upload that. The only difference is the amount of experience that's required in order to become certified. And all of this is detailed within our candidate handbook and also on our website. Or if you don't possess either of those, you are able to evidence the necessary experience requirements, and you're able to be admitted into the program via that way as well. For the experience, it's usually 7 years that you need to evidence, with at least 5 of that, 5 of those years being within the last few years, of course. Once your program is approved, it's pretty much a matter of submitting the exam registration. You will have 180 days to sit for the exam. If you need an extension, one is available for purchase. And then once you sit the exam, you get your results within 48 hours. So realistically, you're going to know very quickly if you have passed the exam, if you need to retake, or if you're able to progress to the next exam part. But as far as the process itself, once you apply, you test, you become certified, and then it's just a matter of maintaining via, some of you are probably familiar with CPE, continuing professional education. Sometimes it's referred to as CPD, but that is just showing that you are maintaining with the current standards and with the current expectations of internal audits. So on the next slide, Vicki is really going to dive into each exam part, but this is just an overall view of what to expect for each of the 3 examination pieces. So part 1, you'll see, has the largest number of domains, and it also has the largest amount of questions. 125 total, and you get 150 minutes to complete the exam. What I really like about part 1 is it kind of prepares you. So if you have no knowledge about internal audit, any of the disciplines, maybe you've been in external audit, or maybe you've come from a different pathway, a different profession. This kind of is an introduction into what internal audit is all about on the theoretical side of it. So here you'll see the foundations, independence and objectivity, and then it goes into other areas like governance, risk management and control. All of these are topics that are covered in what's referred to as the IPPF, or the framework. And this is what all internal auditors are required to know. It's a part of what they do on a day-to-day basis. And it's considered really the foundation of the profession. When you move on to part 2, this is more practical application. So now that you have the foundation that was laid in part 1, now what is it that you are expected to do as far as actionable items? So this is what part 2 dives into. You'll see it's not as many questions, but again, the content is kind of outlined for you. There's a huge weighted percentage. 40% of this exam is based on performing the engagement. So that really kind of lets you know what the majority of the testing is going to be based on. And again, these are the actionable items and what you're going to do day to day as an internal auditor. And when you follow the pathway, so part 1's laying the foundation, part 2 is talking about what actionable items, what do you actually do as an internal auditor? And then part 3 dives into business acumen. So some of this you may be familiar with if you've done, like a master's program or any type of business school or education. Some of these concepts may be familiar. Also, it dives into the IT area. So if any of you also have IT certifications, or it's a field that you work in, this may be something that you are familiar with. And then, of course, there is still a tie-in to the internal audit component, but you kind of see the framework for each part. And one of the cool things about the exam is each individual part has its own journey. So I encourage you guys to really dive into the content. Of course, we want you to pass, and that is, very important to earn the CIA, complete the program. But also understanding each individual element of these exams, I think, goes a long way. It helps you not only in your current role, but it helps you to understand, what is it that you're expected to know, and how to perform the engagement. So it's very important to pay attention to each individual part as well as a whole, but we want to look at it individually as well and extract as much value as we can from the exam series.
Right,
and I think we have our next poll question. Yeah.
Perfect. So our next question is, have you already applied for the CI certification program? Yes or no? So we'll give everybody a few seconds to submit their answer and we'll push the results through. Make sure just to hit the submit button when you select your choice. Okay, I think we're ready to show those results. Just waiting for a few additional people to submit. All right. I'll turn it back over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you. So it's pretty close, almost an even split. So we do have quite a few of you who have not yet applied into the certification program, and a few of you already have. So for those of you who have not applied, I'm glad we are able to speak with you today. So we want to make you aware that there is going to be a price increase that comes into effect September 1st. And this is for the exam cost on each of the 3 CIA exam parts. So the numerical value is represented, and you'll see on this slide, $280 is the member pricing. So of course, if you're not a member, you should definitely join because there's discounts on the pricing for each step of the application process. Part 2 is $230, and Part 3 is also $230. That is the member pricing. Non-member pricing is, I would say, substantially higher. $395 for Part 1, $345 for Parts 2 and Parts 3. This is the current pricing if you were to register today. The application is $115 for members and $230 for non-members. As of September the 1st, that price is going to increase for Parts 1, Part 2, and Part 3. The increase for Part 1 for member is going to go up $15. That'll be $295. For Part 2, it's going to increase $35, and it'll be $265. And Part 3 is going to increase again $35, and that'll be $265. Again, if you are not a member, I encourage you to join the IIA, whether or not it's via your local IIA affiliate in your respective country, or you can contact IIA headquarters for more information on membership. The Part 1 non-member pricing, and again, this starts as of September 1st, is going to go up to $425. $395 is going to be the new price for Part 2, and $395 will be the new price for Part 3. So for that 48% or so that has not enrolled yet, I encourage you to enroll as soon as possible. You become approved into the program, like we discussed, submit your documents, and then you'll be able to submit your exam registrations. As long as they are submit prior to September 1st, then you're going to be locked in for the pre-September 1st pricing, depending on membership or non-membership. So definitely you want to, as best as you can, try to get enrolled into the program. Even if you aren't able, to take the exam immediately, remember you have 180 days. So that gives you 6 months to prepare and to take the exam. And again, you can take that either in person or online via the Pearson VUE online proctoring. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly to introduce our next presenter.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. We appreciate you sharing all that helpful CI exam information. Our next presenter is Vicki Mcintyre, who's one of our expert CI instructors, and she will be covering information about how to prepare for the CI exam. So Vicki, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Kelly and Jonathan. Jonathan, excellent presentation on helping us understand the CIA certification process. We're going to get into exam preparation and give you some tips and tricks so that you can be successful. Why would you consider using the IIA's CIA learning system? Well, it aligns the International Professional Practices Framework with the exam content. So it's going to capitalize on your personal knowledge and training. It's going to use the IIA's certification expertise, and this is all incorporated into the curriculum to give you the best learning experience to ensure your success. You have an opportunity using the learning system to personalize, so you can customize your study path based on your baseline understanding of the content, which is assessed through a little quiz that you will take when you begin your study. It allows you to pick and choose the topics where you need the most help, the most emphasis, so that you can master those topics and be successful on your exams. The exam, the learning system content is broken up into small kind of micro-learning pieces. So it's these small content segments that give you estimated study times for each segment so that you can make the most efficient use of your time and make sure that you do have a clear understanding of each topic before you move on to the next. So little bite-sized study modules. So whether you have 3 to 5 minutes before a meeting perhaps, or 3 to 5 minutes before you're getting on an airplane, whatever, you can make progress towards your CIA certification and studying and being prepared. Within the curriculum, there are links embedded that will take you directly to additional IIA guidance, such as the practice guides, position papers, the global technology audit guides, and so forth. Now that is available, and you'll go directly there by clicking on the links when you are an IIA member. Jonathan emphasized the importance of becoming an IIA member. If you are not, you will save at least as much money on your exam fees as you will pay for membership. Also know that the learning system is designed for mobile devices. You can download the content onto your e-reader, whatever, and you have the opportunity to choose your self-study approach. You can use an instructor-led course, or you might want to take advantage of group training. So here we have self-study. It's online curriculum. It is remote ready, so you can pace yourself and do your study on your own schedule. It's convenient, and again, it's mobile optimized. In terms of self-study, what we've learned about adult learners is that many of us prefer to work with a group. We do better when we have opportunities to learn from other people also going down their road to their CIA success. But for those of you that are very independent, if you can calendar your study time and you're disciplined that you will indeed do the work independently, then go for the self-study approach. The instructor-led courses offer top-level CIA instructors. I'm proud to say that I am one. I have taught this curriculum many times all over the world in the live classroom with private clients, through universities, We've done it online, of course, virtually, substantially over the last 2.5 or 3 years. But know that the IIA does have top-level CIA instructors, and you can go on learncia.com and find the IIA-sponsored courses. The Part 1 course starts on August 29th. Part 2 starts on Halloween on October 31st, and Part 3 will start on September 12th. So go out to learncia.com and you can find that. You can also find them on the IIA.org. Corporate. So we also, if you have a group of folks that are pursuing CIA certification within your audit shop, we can send instructors to your learning site, to your actual offices. We can set up the course in your conference room, and we're very, very flexible as far as how we deliver the material. Whether we do, the comprehensive course is 5 days in a row, 8 hours a day, which is pretty grueling, but it gets you through it. So oftentimes chief audit executives will use the classroom environment and hire an instructor to come in, even if it's just to refresh their team members on the IIA standards, and particularly Part 1. Part 1 and Part 2 as well. Part 1 with all of the various attribute standards and the 1000 series of standards, fundamentals of governance, risk, and control, and then the high-level coverage on fraud topics. And then they'll go through Part 2 as well. The Part 2 curriculum is all about IIA methodology, so it's a great refresher, even for people who have been practicing internal audit for a number of years, but also really sets the stage for getting you ready for that CIA exam. So corporate opportunities are available as well. So Kelly, another polling question, please.
Excellent. Thanks, Vicki. Our next question is, how do you like to study? Do you prefer to study on your own in self-study format? Or is your preference that you prefer to be in a classroom with an in-person instructor, such as Vicki, to be an instructor-led course? Or is your preference an online classroom situation in which you are taking an instructor-led course but virtually in an online format, or other option? So please select the radio button next to your choice and hit submit, and we will review the results shortly. Excellent. Thanks very much for pushing through those results. So it looks like the majority is preferring to study on their own, and I'll turn it over to Vicki to add some additional comments.
Well, thank you, Kelly. Yeah, so for those of you, I think during COVID, many of us have learned to work very independently, right? Whether we like it or not. So maybe you want to do your self-study program. The IIA CIA learning system gives you a very clear pathway to how to structure your study. Like I said, it allows you to assess your baseline capabilities and then study the content and then practice. I would say recognize that this is a considerable effort. It's going to require your time and your dedication, your commitment. Just remember that this is an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your career path, and whether or not you stay in internal audit, it's going to serve you well in any business environment, even if you're working for government or nonprofit. The foundation of governance, risk, and control and fraud is fundamental to every person working in business in today's environment. So let's go through the three-step process for success on earning your CIA certification. So first, you would assess, understand your starting point, understand your strengths and weaknesses. So you've got to use a systematic, disciplined approach to how you go through the curriculum. Remember, your Part 1 exam consists of 6 domains, and it's a lot. It is a lot. Whenever I teach these courses, by the time we're about 3/4 of the way through the Part 1 curriculum, people are going, wow, it's just a lot. It is a lot, but you can do it. If you plan, if you calendar your study, if you break it up into those bite-sized pieces, it's very doable. So creating your personalized study path, calendaring your study time, and having that systematic, disciplined approach is going to be crucial to your success. Step 2 then is to study. So follow your recommended path based on your pre-test results. Again, don't focus on the areas where you're very familiar with the content. It's curious to me as an instructor when students come back to me and say, well, you know, I've really got the content down on the quality assurance and improvement program and on the charter, but I'm not doing well on independence and objectivity or proficiency in due professional care. Well, you know, you've got to study. You've got to focus on those topics where you are, you know, weaker. I think we need to understand, for example, independence and objectivity are not the same thing. They're very similar, but not the same thing. And your CIA learning system is going to give you a very clear, distinct understanding of the difference between the two. Likewise with proficiency in due professional care. Proficiency has to do with the knowledge and the skills and the experience that we bring to performing the work. Due professional care has to do with following internal audit standards and internal audit methodology. So they're a little different, and we need to understand these distinctions. And the learning system is going to give you this, you know, clear delineation between various topics like this that we often think of as the same. So study. You'll be able to download the curriculum, all of the materials, to your e-reader. You can get the printed books if you'd like. I happen to be rather old school. I like to have a hard copy book in my hand because I like to underline. I like to make notes in the margins. I like to relate my professional experience and my you know, my peculiarities in my internal audit career path to the content in the curriculum. So you too can do that, whether you use your e-reader, printed books. Just know that each of the topics in the exam syllabus are provided with estimated study times. So that may be helpful to you as well. The topics are presented in these little bite-sized pieces, again, to make your study most efficient. If you want more detail, if you're struggling with a topic, or you just want to take a deeper dive because it's very relevant to something you're doing currently in your work environment, then you can link directly to the reading materials and the practice guides, position papers on the IIA website. So that's really a helpful tool. Quizzes. So once you believe that you have mastered the topics, you have an opportunity to test your understanding, and you get immediate feedback and the rationale for the best answer. You will find that many CIA exam questions will have 2 correct answers. the challenge is to choose the best answer according to the IIA standards, the professional practices framework, and the guidance. So this is critical that you study. I find that people who are highly experienced internal auditors and very well qualified, they do great work, but they're used to doing things the way they've always done it. They're used to their internal audit methodology. They're used to their industry. They're used to their regulatory environment. And the CIA certification is globally recognized. It's portable to any country, any business, any nonprofit, any government organization all around the world. So when you are reading and analyzing the exam questions, you've got to think very broadly and think in terms of a global profession. So I'm getting back to this point of many of the questions will have 2 correct answers, and your job is to choose the best answer according to the standards and guidance, as well as what would have the broadest applicability in the work of an internal auditor in our global profession. Okay? So the point here is that you will immediately see if you answered the question correctly. It pops up the green bar that says correct, or if it's incorrect, then you'll get a red bar that says incorrect, and it'll give you the rationale like you see at the top of the slide. It'll also give you the direct information in your CIA learning system curriculum where you can find the topic, you can find the details on the topic of the question that you have missed. The study piece also has the flashcards and glossary. I've had feedback from many, many students that the flashcards are very, very helpful. I strongly recommend downloading the flashcards and printing them. You print them in a duplex form so that perhaps you have the term on one side of the flashcard and the definition on the other. We also recommend, if you're really committed and you have time, supplement the flashcards with what you remember from your learning and from your reading of the curriculum. So write down on the flashcard. The more touch points that adult learners have with any topic, the higher the likelihood that they will remember the details of the topic. So once you've read the terminology and the definition on the flashcard, you're recalling what you learned from your reading, and now you're writing it down on a flashcard. That's at least 3 touch points with the material, probably 4, right? Reading the flashcard, reading the content, recall of what you read, and then writing it down. So that's 4 touch points. If you're accurate in your recollection, that solidifies the learning on any given topic. Study times. So this is the IIA's recommendation. Part 1, 40 hours. Part 2, 40 hours. Part 3, 50 plus hours. My personal experience for me, now I was pretty well experienced in my profession. I was pretty far along in my career path. I had about 18 or 20 years of work experience already, and I was a vice president of risk management. I was a certified public accountant licensed in the state of California. So I had had quite a bit of experience. I studied for about 50 hours for part 1 and part 2. I studied for them together, and I took those exams, part 1 in the morning and part 2 in the afternoon on the same day, and I was successful on my first attempt at both exams. On my part 3 exam, I studied about 80 hours, even though I had mastered the financial management topics because of my accounting and finance background. I was very intimidated by the IT content. So for me, it took about 80 hours, but again, I passed my part 3 exam on my first attempt. So part of assessing your baseline and understanding your starting point is understanding your strengths and weaknesses, understanding those topics that are going to be challenging or those topics that intimidate you. Remember, a lot of test taking is psychological, right? You don't want to beat yourself. You don't want to defeat yourself before you even get started. So learning through the CIA learning system is going to help you because of the quizzes, because of the repetition and the reference to the content. You know, when you get a question wrong, it's going to reinforce your learning. It's going to be very helpful in minimizing exam anxiety so that you are very well prepared and very confident when you go into your exam experience. Again, these are just guidelines about expected study time. Your study times may be more hours or less hours depending on your work experience and whether or not your audit activity follows the professional practices framework exactly. It may differ if you're in highly regulated industries versus not, or if you're working for perhaps a government agency that uses a blend of guidance, like in the US. Here we have the Yellow Book guidance for government auditors. We have Green Book, and of course the IIA is the Red Book. So there might be a blend of standards and guidance that the audit activity is using to do its professional work. Clearly, our focus is on Red Book. And so those auditors that come from privately or publicly traded stock companies that have a larger audit activity, where they're following the standards and guidance out of the Red Book regularly, where they have a robust quality assurance and improvement program, those auditors tend to do a little better and have a little bit easier time with the study time commitment. Okay, step 3 is the CIA practice exam, and this is one of the greatest things about the learning system. This is a practice exam that exactly gives you a user interface and has the look and feel of the exam that you will see when you go to the Pearson VUE Exam Center and actually take your exam. So it has the CIA exam software that allows you to flag your questions that you are unsure of. And if you practice proper time management all through your studies, you should have a rhythm of answering one question every minute. You should not spend more than 1 minute on any question. And if you practice that time management during your study, working your quizzes, you know, monitor it with your phone so that you develop the discipline. No more than 1 minute. At the 1 minute mark, you pick an answer and move on. If you don't know the answer after 1 minute, you probably won't know the answer after 5 minutes. So choose an answer and move on. But what is key here in the CIA learning system is that you can flag the question. So for example, part 1, 1 minute per question. There's 125 questions. You're about 2 hours into your 2.5 hour time allotted for the exam. Now you have about 25 or 30 minutes to go back to those questions that you flagged during the course of taking the exam questions, and you can revisit those. So by developing this discipline of 1 minute per question, you're going to have a built-in buffer of time at the end of the exam so that you don't have the anxiety associated with running out of time. Okay? Remember, pick an answer and move on. You must answer every question as you're moving through your exam. If you leave a question unanswered, you are sure to not get a point for that question. If you pick an answer and it's correct, you have a 25% chance of getting a correct answer. There's only 4 answer options. So choose an answer, flag the question, and move on. This is one of the fantastic things about the IIA's CIA learning system and this Pearson VUE exam emulation. Now we have a practice question, and this is not a polling question. So I'd like for you to look at this question. I'll give you 1 minute to answer it so we can figure out what 1 minute feels like starting now. Ten seconds. Okay, so you may look at this question and think, oh my goodness, this is a fraud question. And then when you get into the 4 answer options, you say, oh, okay, this is really an accounting question. Well, it's both, right? You need to understand fundamentals of accounting in order to answer this question correctly, but you also need to understand what's going on in the mind of a fraud perpetrator who might have stolen an asset. Okay, if they have access to the accounting system, what entry would they make? So analyzing this question, look at the key words. Which of the following fraudulent entries is most likely? Most likely. So there may be 2 answers that are correct, but we got to get to the best answer. So most likely going to be made on the books to conceal the theft of an asset, to hide an asset that a fraud perpetrator has stolen. Most likely, the entry would be to debit an expense general ledger account and credit the asset. So with our fundamentals of accounting, we understand that crediting the asset wipes the asset off the books. Now the asset is gone. So the fraudster says, okay, we got rid of that car. It's not on the books anymore. And we're going to run run it through an expense account in the general ledger. It's going to be buried in the profit and loss statement. So this is most likely, this is the most likely answer. Now, answer C, you might be thinking answer C would work as well. Yes, it would. Crediting the asset would get it off the books, but debiting revenue would stick out very clearly. Why? Because revenue accounts are income accounts that carry credit balances, and there should never be a debit to a revenue account unless it's a reversing entry. So we would need to know that about financial, internal control, and also just what we know about financial statements. Okay, moving on. Study tips. You want to choose an appropriate study method for you. Okay, again, do you work best in a group? Do you work best independently? Number 2, be realistic about your study time. Be realistic about your life. Everybody has obligations. Everybody has commitment, family, work, maybe volunteerism, whatever it is. You know what your life looks like, and you know realistically how many hours per week you can dedicate to studying. The number of hours per week that you need to study and the duration of your study is going to be largely determined by that baseline understanding when you do that beginning quiz that's going to assess where you are today on the various topics in each of the 3 exams. Don't procrastinate. The number 1 reason that most of my students have not earned their CIA certification is because they procrastinate. They push it out, and never get it done. I've even had people who have passed parts 1 and 2 exams and they procrastinate with part 3, and then they lose the credit for part 1 and part 2. Don't let that be you. Have a very systematic, disciplined approach to how you're going to approach this certification. Remember, it's an investment in you. It's an investment in your career path. Okay? Establish your study plan. Document it in your calendar. Show up for your study appointments. Treat it like a self-study university course. You get to pick the date of your final exam. That's your Pearson VUE exam experience for each of the 3 parts. So take it seriously, be committed, use those flashcards, focus on the proficiency level topics, and this is identified in your CIA Learning System table of contents. Understand the application of the standards and guidance. Relate the standards and guidance and what you're learning to what you're actually doing in practice in your internal audit work. It may or may not correlate. What you're learning in the CIA Learning System may or may not correlate with exactly what you do in your audit activity. And I hear this in class from students so often. Well, we don't do that. We're all quality assurance and improvement program. We don't do any of those internal quality activities. Well, the standards say that we must. So we need to learn what we must do according to the standards and be prepared to answer questions on those topics on the exam. So go beyond memorization. Think about the practical application of what you're learning. Be prepared for the Pearson VUE exam experience. Okay, the computer-based test format. Work in that exam emulation, the final exam in your CIA Learning System. Pay particular attention to the professional practices framework. You're going to get there by clicking on those links and going directly to the standards and the supplemental guidance. Write an audit manual table of contents. If you can recall all of the topics in parts 1 and 2, you should be able to write an outline, a structure to what an internal audit policy and procedure manual would look like. So from your recall, write down what a table of contents might look like and consider your work experience, real life examples. In terms of taking the actual exam, particularly when you see a very long paragraph, say more than 2 or 3 sentences, you want to go directly to the last sentence with the question mark at the end and understand what question is being asked before you read all of the background information. So go directly to the question, understand the questions being asked, and then go back and read the additional background information. As you're reading that question, anticipate what the answer might be. Think about it. I think this is, okay, this has to be both internal and external activities. Now go back and read the background information in the question, and then read the 4 answer choices and choose the best answer according to what you know about the standards and guidance. Look for clues, look for the qualifiers in the question. Number 1 test-taking tip is to read the question. So look for the clues, like most likely, least likely, except for, not likely, and all, okay? Words like all, always, never. If you see those words in an exam question option, that's unlikely the correct answer because those are absolutes. Again, think broadly, think globally. Eliminate the distractors, get rid of the ones you know are the wrong answers, and choose from the remaining. Don't overanalyze. Analysis paralysis is going to kill time. Structure, systemize, manage your time, 1 minute per question. If you're not sure of an answer, flag it, move on. Budget your time, don't rush. You want to be well rested, have a good meal, be comfortable for your exam. One more practice question. Determining that engagement objectives have been met is ultimately the responsibility. I'll give you like 15 seconds for this one. We're getting short on time, and this one should be pretty easy. So look at the 4 answers and choose the best answer. Engagement objectives have been met is ultimately the responsibility of the Chief Audit Executive, right? Ultimately. Whether, now you need to understand IIA language, and the CIA learning system is going to give you this exposure. The Chief Audit Executive is that person identified as the head of internal audit, who is responsible for the overall audit function, whether it's a 2 or 3 person shop or, you know, a 200 person shop. The IIA language uses Chief Audit Executive. So this is the senior person ultimately responsible for everything in internal audit. And this is right out of the implementation guidance for Standard 2340. Okay, Kelly, can you tell us who the winner is?
Great. Well, thank you so much, Vicki, for sharing all that helpful information about the exam preparation. So we are going to do a random drawing today for the winner of a free ICI online seminar. You're able to pick parts 1, 2, or 3. So the random winner, just scrolling, is John Gaze. So congratulations, John. We will be reaching out to you so you may select your free IE seminar. All right. So next, we would also like to share with all attendees that for attending today, we are offering a special 20% discount on the CI Learning System materials. This discount may be ordered by going to learnci.com. You would want to enter the discount code CIA822 at the checkout, and this 20% discount is valid until August 31st. It's available on discount on individual parts and on full kits, which is the parts 1 through 3. And also it applies to not only the online learning system materials, but if you prefer to add on printed books, as Vicki mentioned, the discount will also apply to the printed books. So again, this is offered until August 31st at learnci.com. Make sure to enter that code at checkout. And I should just mention, this is also on top of the member discount. So as you can see from this chart, for example, if you were to purchase a full kit as an IA non-member, it's typically $8.95. As an IA member, it's $7.95, and you'll get the additional 20% discount on top of those member discounts. Also, if you're interested in taking an instructor-led course, I've listed here the URL. If you go to learnci.com and you can click on course listings there, that will provide you with a list of all of the online and the in-person course listings for all around the world. So check that out if you're somebody who prefers to study and prepare from an instructor-led course. So just to wrap up, again, the discount code is CIA822. Also, just a heads up that to maintain your certificate, you want to make sure that you're submitting your CPEs. So use those training resources and make sure as you're practicing CIA that you submit 40 hours of CPEs every year. We're just out of time. I know we've been answering a lot of questions in the background. If we did not get to your question, we will download the list of all the questions and we'll respond to you directly. And if you would like to review our frequently asked questions, and or if you would like to download these slides and recording of the webinar, you may do so at this website, learnci.com/webinar-archive. Just give us a couple of days to post that and it will be available there shortly. So with that, we are at the end of our broadcast today. Many thanks to our presenters today for a great presentation. We're also going to display today's post-event survey. So if you aren't able to see the survey, please go to the resources tab on your console where you can locate the survey link. And again, we'll follow up with any questions that we were not able to get to today. So thank you again for attending. Stay safe and have a great day.